What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bass. In today's video, we are talking about summer drop shot fishing. I have some tips, some tricks, and some things to think about, hopefully some mistakes to avoid the next time you find yourself throwing a drop shot in the summer. All right, truth be told, I was just talking to some high school kids. They're actually out here in Tennessee, Chickamauga, fishing the Bassmaster National High School Championship. I think there's something like 275 or 280 boats, teams from all over the country represented out here. And I was talking to one of the young anglers, and he said, "Tim, I love throwing a drop shot. What is the number one mistake that I'm probably making?" And I thought about that for a second, and the first thing I said was, you're probably giving that bait too much action. But now that I've had some time to kind of think about it, I wouldn't say that's the number one mistake. We're gonna cover mistakes here shortly, but we'll hold that off till the end. But why should you be throwing a drop shot? You know, for those of you guys that aren't familiar with a drop shot, it is a finesse technique. Okay, it's one of my favorite techniques 12 months out of the year. It is a finesse technique that I have at least ready to be rigged in my boat or with me at all times. It is a confidence technique for me. So as you can see here, we have a little, that's actually an X zone, but we'll talk about baits here shortly. But that bait is suspended up about, what is that? 12 to 14 inches up off of bottom. So it can be fished several different ways. It can be rigged a few different ways. Those of you guys that like to power fish, it can also be rigged weedless, okay? So it's a way to take your favorite shad or minnow bait, profile bait, and suspend it up off bottom a little bit, or your favorite 4.5, 6-inch, 8-inch worm. Okay, it just gives these fish a little bit different presentation. You know, these fish have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of shaky heads or jigs or bottom contact baits. So having your favorite worm suspended up off bottom is great for two things. One, you don't get snagged nearly as often having that heavy head down in the rock or having that exposed hook down in the rock. And two, it's weedless, right? It suspends this bait up in their face and it can be fished weedless. So if you're fishing around grass lines or brush piles, it is weedless just like your favorite shaky head or favorite Texas rig, but it suspends that bait up in that fish's face. So it's a finesse technique that I gained a ton of confidence in fishing out west, whether it was clear highland reservoirs or murky, you know, shallow or just murkier water vegetation lakes, whether it was the California Delta or Clear Lake, but a lot of lakes that had a lot of grass. Okay, fish love that grass and they love to eat a drop shot. So that was probably my number one combo. My first combo I ever bought that I considered high end was actually a drop shot combo. It was one of those techniques that I had so much confidence in fishing tournaments back then that I wanted to spend that little bit extra money and get a nice combo, a good reel with some nice drag. A lot of times in clear water, you're fishing light line. You're trying to basically mimic a bait fish. You have an exposed hook and you're trying to mimic a bait fish and you need a good drag. So I wanted a nice sensitive rod and combo that was light and a drag that would allow those big fish. You know, we're chasing those world record spotted bass and stuff, you know, 8, 9, 10 pounders. You want a reel that has some good drag. So that was my number one, my first ever high-end combo was a drop shot combo. And to this day, it's just a confidence bait for me. You know, Matt and I talk about it all the time. Like when it gets tough for me and I want to catch fish in the summertime, I don't go to a shaky head or a jig. I go to a drop shot, whether it be the exposed hook or the weedless Texas rig version. That's what I go to. So now that you kind of saw the two ways to rig it, let's get back to that mistake. You know, I thought about this now. It's been a couple hours since I saw them, and thinking about it, and I think the number one mistake for me, it's one of my things that I'm like ADD about, is making sure your hook is straight. I want that bait to be straight. A lot of guys will tie their drop shot. I'm gonna try and hold this so you guys can see. Let me get this up there so you can see that hook, okay? I want that hook sitting as straight as possible on that line. I want that thing sitting almost flat, right? I want that thing sitting straight. Now, before, 2 tips on doing this. Now, it doesn't matter if you're throwing a Texas rig weedless drop shot or power shot or the exposed hook, but before, when you tie a drop shot, basically you're tying a Palomar knot, and we have videos on this. You can search our channel under, you know, how to rig a drop shot or how to tie a Palomar knot, whatever. But basically, before you cinch your Palomar knot, cinch it slowly and then hold it, adjust your hook so it's straight, and then cinch it, okay? That will help you a ton. A lot of times they want to sit sideways, they want to sit upside down. You know, you don't want your bait rigged upside down, right? Again, this is a finesse presentation. It's a suspended presentation. These fish have a ton of time to examine it, so you want it to sit straight. At least I do. I feel like I'm always adjusting my hook. I just want that bait to sit as natural and flow as fluidly as possible. And having that straight hook is the number one thing. Now, the other tip you can do, once you tie your Palomar knot, before you put your drop shot weight on there, run that tag line back through the eye of that hook and cinch it down. Then you can adjust your knot. You can pull your knot down into the eye of the hook, and you have a hook that is sitting almost perfectly straight. Now, the next big thing, make sure you hook your bait straight. Take time. Where'd that guy go? Rig it like a traditional exposed hook, okay? I'd hold it vertically, but what's special about this bait right here, this is that we're gonna talk about this here in just a second, the finesse slammer. But why I grabbed this bait, it's natural buoyancy. So when it sits in the water, it sits perfectly horizontal, and that's really key when you're fishing a drop shot. But anyways, so make sure your bait is straight. Make sure your hook is straight. And then the other tip for you guys, make sure you, if you can, there are lots of different hooks and weights on the market. A lot of are kind of this wedge style. You basically run your line through there, through that little gap, and then wedge it on there. I have lost so many weights with fish jumping that I started primarily going with a weight that you can tie on. It's got a little swivel up top. You tie that on, so when those fish come up and jump, they don't throw your weight. But I like a tungsten sinker. Again, your bottom contact, having that more dense material, just transfers sensitivity a lot better. So that is how you rig a drop shot. That is my number one mistake, okay? Make sure your bait is straight. So getting back to my previous number one mistake, too much action, okay? A lot of times I notice anglers when they're fishing a drop shot, they're just shake, 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 shake. Shake, 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 shake. They're giving that bait all sorts of erratic action, which is okay. But I have found that less action, more natural action is better. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you can get real aggressive, right? Shake, 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 shake. This worm's dancing all over the place. The worm's dancing all over the place. The bait fish profile bait is dancing all over the place. That doesn't look that natural. And what I've learned through the years, underwater footage, looking at these baits, a few of them look really, really good underwater with minimal action. There's current underwater, whether you're on a current system, a river system, or you get weather patterns, you get wind, right? So the wind blows from the south one day, well, guess what? That water's coming back the next day. So that current kind of reverses and backfills. There's enough current down there to give enough action to your bait, okay? So to be clear on that, throw it out there, right? Throw it out there, let it hit bottom, and I'm just reel up my slack. A lot of times this time of the year, I can fish a drop shot fast. And that's one of the key things it's one of the key reasons that I have it tied on over a shaky head all the time, right? I can flip and pitch really fast, and I can let it hit bottom, reel up my slack, check for a little bit of weight. A lot of times they're either gonna eat it on the initial fall or within the first few hops, okay? So I pull up my line taut, check it, it's not heavy, shake, shake, drag, okay? A lot of times that dragging motion is enough to cover water slowly, but it still gives that worm that subtle, natural, more realistic action, okay? The shake, 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 that thing is just like, I mean, it's dancing all over the place and looks out of place. So to answer the question, I think a lot of people give too much action to their drop shot worms. I've learned this, me personally, one, with fish catches, playing around, just dragging, and that thing goes doop, versus shake, 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 not getting bit. Two, more visual, the underwater footage. You guys can't see, when we're showing you the underwater footage, you don't see if I'm shake, 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 or just holding it there, right? All you see is that, man, that worm looks really good underwater. Well, I know what I'm doing to that. So maybe these times we do some underwater footage, maybe we'll do a second camera to kind of show you what we're doing and how it looks. But with that said, I know how I'm fishing it to get that result. And from what I can tell, what I can see, the less action, the better. More of that dragging. And then if I do get, I'm dragging, shake, shake, let it sit, drag, 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 get hung up, I pop it and let it fall. Just like that initial fall when you make your flip, pitch, or cast, let it fall, and then slowly pull up your line taut and wait for that load. If it's loaded, reel down and load into them with the exposed hook. Okay, on the Texas rig, you can reel down and jack them, right? We have this is the Owner Cover Shot HD. It's a heavier duty hook, heavier line. We're gonna run through tackle here shortly after this, but I'm gonna reel down and it's heavy, or I feel that tick, I'm gonna reel down and swing. Having the bait caster with braid to leader, a lot of sensitivity and a lot of power, okay? So that was my number 1 and 2 mistakes. Kind of flip-flopped when he asked me that, but the only other mistake that I want to talk about is, and this applies to all finesse fishing. Recently, I've seen some comments on some of our videos, some threads and stuff talking about, why do you recommend 50-pound braid for frog fishing? I can get away with 20-pound, or why do you recommend 20-pound braid when other people recommend, 50-pound braid, or whatever. Two different answers to that. Braid is, my first answer for power fishing would be, I've lost some fish on 40 and 50-pound braid. I've straight broke the braid. Fishing for bigger fish, fishing through heavier vegetation, having that 65 or even 80-pound braid, throwing a frog or punching or whatever, a top water. I just like having that extra power when or if I need it, okay? Now, as far as finesse fishing, I like that 10, 12, 15-pound braid. The braid gives you, it's the single easiest thing you can do to all of your finesse fishing setups to increase your sensitivity. Having that little stretch, braid is just more sensitive than fluorocarbon, than monofilament. It just is. Little to no stretch, very, very sensitive. And then the added bonus is the castability, right? You can cast braid with that smaller diameter. A 12-pound braid might have like a 4-pound line diameter. You compare that to a 6 or an 8 pound fluorocarbon, it's night and day different. So having that smooth braid, that's really key. Smooth braid for your spinning techniques, but drop shot especially, being able to cast far. You know, I think when people first started fishing a drop shot, they were mainly vertically fishing it, that shake, 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 vertically fishing it under the trolling motor, straight down, almost like a, you know, suspending that bait directly below them. But I do a lot of flipping and pitching and casting, long casts, okay, long casts, and I'm gonna fish that thing all the way back to the boat. So long cast, drag, drag, drag. First, I'm checking to see if that thing's heavy. It's not, so shake, 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 real subtle shakes, and I'm fishing that thing all the way back to the boat, all the way back to shore if I'm fishing the bank, but I'm fishing this out in front of me a long ways, okay? So that is the braid thing. If you're not fishing braid, you are losing sensitivity. I don't care if you're fishing a $30 rod from Walmart or a $1,000 rod from Japan. Adding braid to that will increase your sensitivity. So I 100% recommend throwing braid on my drop shot, okay? The only exception, sometimes when I go up north and I'm fishing like 30 and 40 foot visibility, lakes with 30 and 40 foot visibility, that's when I'll go straight fluorocarbon, because I'm tying a braid to leader and I don't want to have to tie a 30 foot leader or a 40 foot leader. It's just easier just to throw straight fluorocarbon and not mess with it. With that said, this time of the year, whether I'm fishing 6, 8, 10, 15, 20 feet, I'm throwing that leader is typically the depth that I'm fishing. That way those fish never see my connection knot. They never see the braid before they see that bait. All right, so we talked about kind of the exposed hook. I do want to show you guys this real quick, and then I'm gonna keep it really simple. So we talked about some of those mistakes, and that was a great question. I really appreciate that question. I was caught off guard by it because I feel like we've done so many drop shot videos through the years, and I've never really talked about mistakes. But I know for me, making sure that bait is sitting right in the water. I'm always checking it, even after my cast. I'm bringing it back to the boat. I'm looking, I want that bait sitting as naturally and as balanced as possible, as straight as possible. Again, bait casting, if you're a guy that's fishing around larger fish, if you're a guy that's fishing around vegetation or through wood, 100% I recommend throwing, all messed up, recommend throwing a bait caster. You have easier pitches, right? You try doing that with a spinner rod over and over again. You're flipping the bail. You're dealing with all that stuff. You deal with the line twist, but just faster and more efficient, right? I can just flip and pitch this thing out there, let it fall. Same thing. Lift up, check, shake, shake, drag, check it, shake, 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 drag, reel up onto the next spot, right? It's just a really efficient way to fish. So that guy right there. Again, I'll link this stuff down below. We've done videos how to rig this stuff, but basically, I'll cover it real quickly. I'm taking my favorite, check out this box right here. This is my drop shot box. This is a cool little box. You guys have probably seen this in other videos, but basically I have all of my straight shank hooks here. So my Texas rig hooks, my weedless hooks for the drop shot. I have my nose hook baits or hooks right there, and then I have some heavier hooks, and then my weights. Okay. While I'm talking about weights, talked about tungsten. If you can, it is a little pricey. If you're gonna go the tungsten route, definitely get those ones to tie on so you don't lose as many. But try to. It's a happy medium. You want to go heavy enough that you're feeling bottom, but you don't want to go too heavy where you're locked onto that spot and you got to drag and you're like stirring up mud and debris from sediment from the bottom. You want that thing flowing naturally as possible. So as you drag, you don't want that bait or that weight down there hanging up. So typically I'm going 3/16 to 1/4. That's kind of my wheelhouse. If I am fishing deeper smallmouth stuff, I might go up to 3/8 if I'm fishing current. But other than that, I'm going as light as possible to get that bait on bottom and still have feel, okay? So straight shank hook, that cover shot HD is a must if you're fishing around big fish. The cover shot, just the traditional cover shot, is a great hook if you're not worried about, you know, catching or bending out, but catching big fish. I would say 6 pounds plus, okay? But it's a straight shank hook. Let me show you this. Straight shank hook with a little, I'm trying to show you how to, little keeper on it. And that is really important when rigging your hook, when rigging your bait straight. So that keeper, again, I'm not sure if you guys can see this or not, but that holds that worm on there straight, okay? So I pull my hook all the way through, turn it on itself so it sits on that keeper, just rests right there, and then I pull and rig that thing straight just like that, okay? But again, just be kind of meticulous about the rigging of your drop shot. Again, my #1 mistake, make sure your bait is rigged right. Make sure that you're not giving your bait too much action. If you are around grass, I love fishing this thing around grass, and you get hung up, kind of pop it through and then let it fall. Again, you'll get that bite on that initial fall out of that grass or shortly thereafter. But again, fish that thing fairly slow, okay? Or fairly inactive. You can still fish it fast. You can still drag, shake a little bit, cover more water, but fish it less erratic, okay? And then as far as like gear, spinning rod, 6'10" to 7'2"-ish, but more importantly, you want a fast or an extra fast tip. You want something that's fairly tippy. You want to be able to see that deflection, that load in the rod as you're dragging. You want to see that thing load up, check it, reel down, and set. Having that light tip or that faster tip will help you detect those bites before you feel. As far as a bait caster, again, same thing. You know, spinner rod, I'm going like a medium light. You can even go with a light if you want, if you're fishing 4 or 5 pound test, real finesse applications. As far as bait caster, I'm going 6'10" to 7 foot, 7'2", something like that. It's a completely different action working it with a bait caster versus the spinning rod, but something that's like more of a medium power. Still that fast action, you want that fast tip, and again, that deflection is key. Being able to see that bite before you feel it. Make sure you do the braid. Obviously, we talked about that. That is the #1 thing you can do to increase any sensitivity. That braid to leader is awesome. And then actual baits, guys, I'm gonna keep it really simple for you. The 2 different ways. Are you mimicking bait fish, or are you fishing your worms? And in my mind, I'm thinking like bluegill-ish size worms, that 4.5 to 6 inch worm, versus like your shad, you know, bait fish, or your silver sides, or your little smelt, that sort of thing. So as far as nose hook baits, okay, there are a lot of really good ones on the market. You know, for the longest time, it seemed like every tournament was being won on the flatworm, the Berkeley flatworm. That's a great worm. You guys know that we like the Smalley Smasher by Big Bite Baits, the Bomb Shot by Missile Baits, and this guy right here, that Finesse Swammer. But what you'll realize, all of those baits, what they have in common is that flat belly, okay? They have a flat belly, and I'll leave links down below in the video description. You guys can click on it and see the HD pictures, but it's got a flat belly. That helps cup that water and gives that thing that subtle motion. So all those baits that I just talked about are great baits. They all have that in common. They have that real flat belly and that real subtle action, and it just looks really, really good underwater. What sets this one apart for me is having that natural buoyancy, or neutral buoyancy, right? So it's sitting like this, just working in the water. As far as baits that guy right there. Talk about that guy right there. And then the Rains, the bubbling shaker, is an awesome bait as well. Has a little bit different action, but that is an awesome bait fish imitator. And as far as this setup, the nose hook setup, I'm fishing for fish that are eating bait fish, okay? On the flip side, I'm throwing this for bigger fish, primarily largemouth, around and through stuff. So I'm throwing 4.5 to 6 inch baits, where these are like 3 inch to 3.5, maybe 4 inch. These guys are like 4.5 to 6 inch. So two of my favorites. Let's start with a 4.5. Actually, let's start with a 6 inch. That's the bait that I throw if I'm fishing largemouth and I'm fishing around grass, or I'm fishing in the summertime like right now, and I'm not on a clear highland reservoir with a lot of visibility. I'm going with a 6 inch worm. Now for forever, guys, forever, you know, going all the way back to that first combo, that first high-end combo I've ever bought, I would throw a 6 inch robo worm, right? That was the staple. Here in the last few years, I've been throwing this guy right here, the magic worm. Now, guess what? They're poured by robo worms. So the biggest thing with robo worm was the colors. They have some amazing colors. Margarita Mutilator 3 is hands down my favorite color. Aaron's Morning Dawn, they have some great colors, but now they're pouring these. So you get a lot of those same great colors, but you have a worm with more ridges, a little bit more detail. And for me, it's just one of those things. Again, it goes hand in hand with having your bait sitting there suspended in their face, where they have time to examine it. Just having your bait straight and just having a little bit more detail is just what I think about. So that guy right there is a must. If you like throwing the 6 inch baits, is an awesome, I just put this thing away. It's an awesome purple-ish worm, okay? You guys know in the springtime, I love throwing the pinks. I love throwing the pinks, and they work good too this time of the year. But as we get warmer water temps, as we get more algae blooms and sediment in the water, you just have less visibility, and I like those darker colors. I like the, if I'm throwing a shaky head, I'm throwing the June bug, right? I have more luck throwing a contrasty color on the drop shot. I love those purples, the dark purples, the browns. If I'm in a true bluegill, say I'm fishing a bluegill pond, that's the main forage, I'm going with something like this. This is actually, they call it Blueback Secret, but it's almost like Aaron's Magic without the red flake, the robo worm color. Just a really good, you guys can't see that in the light, but iridescent, light green, blue, has some brown in it. Just a real good bluegill imitator. So that's one of my favorite colors if I'm fishing around fish I feel like are primarily feeding on bluegill. But that's the 6 inch bait. I'll link some other favorites down below in the video description. Those sit really well in the water. Again, you got to keep that line tight and keep it somewhat moving to keep that worm happy. Keep it kind of level, right? Horizontal. You don't want your drop shot to be just sitting like this, right? You got your weight down here and your worm basically parallel to your line. You want that thing out like that. So you're moving it and letting that thing do its natural action. And then speaking of bluegill or smaller presentations, you guys know that we love tilapia colored stuff, whether it's flipping baits or worms. That tilapia color, even if you don't have tilapia in your lake, it just looks a little like a lot of things, if that makes sense, right? Kind of that green pumpkin, a little bit of blue, purple, copper flake. It just looks like a lot of things. And that is a really killer downsize profile if you don't want to throw a true 6 inch bait, okay? But guys, drop shotting this time of the year, it's my go-to over a shaky head, over a jig. It's my go-to finesse technique. Now, whether I'm throwing 20-pound braid to 12 or 15 or 17-pound leader on a bait caster, or I'm throwing 8, 10, 12-pound braid to 4, 5, 6, 8-pound fluorocarbon, is totally dependent on the fishery, the size of fish I'm targeting, and the baits, right? I'm not going to throw this on a bait caster. I'm not going to throw this typically on a exposed hook. But if you haven't played around with a drop shot, if you haven't given it its chances, you should try it. I can't tell you, as I first started getting into bass fishing, that was my go-to finesse technique over a weightless Senko, over just because I could fish it faster. I had more bottom feel. I could feel what the bottom composition was. I learned more knowing where the rock break was or where the grass line was. I just felt more connected. But if you haven't given the drop shot a fair chance or fair opportunity, I challenge you guys to try that this summer. It's just an awesome way to, it's an awesome technique. It's a great way to catch fish when other techniques just aren't working, right? You've already tried your power fishing, you've already tried your reaction fishing. Now you have to slow down, and you'll be surprised, middle of the day, fishing those shade lines and fishing, you know, the deepest, darkest stuff, what will actually eat a drop shot. Now, with that said, one other mistake, because I'm kind of playing these mistakes in the back of my head, one of the mistakes I used to make a lot on those highland reservoirs, if you're a guy that's fishing for spotted bass or even largemouth, just out off of main lake points, highland reservoirs, lowland reservoirs, lakes that typically have a lot more arms and fingers and all that good stuff, and you're fishing the point, a lot of times people will fire out that main lake point and fish it right down the middle. Next time you're out, try fishing off of the edges, right where it rolls off. Because a lot of times these fish are gonna sit on the edges, come up and feed, back down, right? They're not going all the way out to the end of the point and coming back. They're coming from the side, deeper water, up onto the point, or backing out and suspending in open water. But again, it's off of the side. So next time you're fishing your favorite main lake point, try fishing off of the sides. But guys, I think that's all I got. All that came from someone asking me today, what was the #1 mistake that you know, most people make in throwing a drop shot, and got a few of them. But learn from my mistakes, and hopefully you guys can apply that to your fishing. Guys, if you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comment section. We'll try to get those as soon as possible. But if you're a guy fishing this summer, and we got the dog days of summer, and you need a way, a confidence bait to put fish in the boat, these guys will get it done. Whether it's the exposed finesse application or the Texas rig, a little bit more power fishing version of the drop shot, the power shot, they will put fish in the boat when other techniques won't. So guys, down below in the video description, I'll link all the stuff I talked about, favorite colors, the worms I talked about. Again, I try to keep it super simple. Try to keep it super simple with colors, just trying to help you guys really narrow it down and give you guys some confidence baits. Again, there's a ton of really good worms, a ton of really good baits on the market, but these are some of our favorite baits, and we'll link those down below. But we really appreciate the support. If you guys learned something from this video or like this video, please hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys on the next video.